Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. It is October, it is the month of horror, it is the Christmas of horror, and
yes.
it's also the dawn of Tim's wedding, which is happening possibly right this very minute, because we're recording this in advance. You can see it's still quite bright outside, it's actually still summer, but we're recording episodes in advance for October, and this one's a biggie. This is a big classic. This is Re-Animator. 1985, Stuart Gordon directed, Brian Usna producing. I'm only specifying that because it always says Brian Usna's, Re-Animator. But yeah, so we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers somewhere in the middle, and we will talk about it. So obviously, I don't have to ask Tim if he likes Re-Animator because of course he does. I've heard him rave about it before. Actually, first question I want to ask you, Tim.
Ooh, okay.
Is which cut did you watch of Re-Animator?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I have the Arrow Blu-ray.
Yes.
And I don't think it specifies. I just pressed play when I watched it last night.
But there's more than one disc, is that correct?
I'm not sure in the version I have. I'd have to get it, but I think I only have one disc.
Well, my version has both the unrated cut and the integral cut.
Okay. Well, actually, do you know how long yours was? Because mine was, I think, only because I noticed it was surprisingly short. I think it was only like an hour 24 minutes.
Yeah, that's the normal one. That's the unrated cut.
The regular one. Okay.
Now that's why I watched as well. Mainly because the director said in the past that it's his preferred cut. That said, that was before the integral cut existed, so I don't know what his opinion is now. But it had been so long since I've watched it that I didn't want to watch the newer cut because I was like, I'm not going to remember what's new and what's not. I'm going to be confused.
Yeah.
So basically what the integral cut is, or to rewind and tell you why there's an integral cut at all, why it exists. So when Re-Animator came out, it was essential to high heavens. The MPAA were not happy with the violence, so they had to cut it to shreds. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what. One thing I was thinking about when I was watching it is like, there's no way this movie could ever have been played on TV, right? Because like 45% of it is like naked butts. There's no way this would have been on like basic cable.
That you might be true in that, but the R-rated version might have been. I don't know how. I've never seen the R-rated version, but I know it cuts out a lot of the violence and stuff and the gore.
Okay.
But one thing it did add in though is because they took all that stuff out, they added in a lot of extra scenes. They added some other subplots, and it added I think it was a psychological element to the film to like sort of spice it up a little bit. Apparently it helped explain earlier on in the film when the dean finds out, like when he first finds out that Dan helped West on his little experiment, and he gets really angry. Apparently it helps explain why he's so angry, like really quickly. But when they did the unrated cut for home video, it's like, no, we don't need that extra stuff because now it has all the original violence back in. It doesn't need the extra stuff to make it interesting. The integral cut is actually all of those extra scenes put back in, but with the additional violence still there.
Okay, I'll have to look at my my Blu-ray over because I did notice it has a lot of special features. So I don't know. I was actually interested. Like after I watched it last night.
Yeah, I would be surprised if the Arrow version doesn't have the other cut.
Yeah,
because Arrow tends to be quite comprehensive with their releases.
I do know on one side of the case there was like a little like booklet or something, so it is possible there's a disc underneath that booklet. I didn't look.
Oh my god, Tim, you are such a noob.
Well, it's not like I was planning on doing like a huge deep dive last night.
Tim,
I had to watch it like last night.
Tim, is the Blu-ray in the room with you right now? Is it over on the other side of the room?
Yeah, I can go grab it.
I want to know the answer to this right now. Go grab it.
Okay.
I will entertain the audience while Tim is away. I want to know if he's an idiot and has the disc underneath the booklet. Because I feel like this will make for good TV. I think you'll agree.
Okay, let's
Tim is back.
Yeah. Oh no.
No disc.
It's just one.
Okay.
No. Yeah, it's just one disc.
All right. Okay.
Jeez, that is a ton of special features though. So I don't know. Maybe that version's on there. I didn't notice.
I'll be surprised if it's not. I feel like Arrow typically do it, unless they had like a limited like version with more stuff or something like that, because they sometimes do that.
Yeah, it's possible that could have been a super duper one.
Yeah,
because I did get whatever cheap one they had.
So
there's an advertisement for "Don't Torture a Duckling" in it.
That sounds about right. They like to put in a little. I've actually got a collection of the cards they put in for the adverts. I've got like a collection of about like 40 of those just stacked up like on a shelf somewhere. I took them all out just like a little set. But yeah, so we're good about Re-Animator. Re-Animator, of course, is heavily kind of Frankenstein inspired. Although it does claim to be H.P. Lovecraft. I don't actually know how much of an influence like H.P. Lovecraft's story has on it. Like, do you know how related it is to Lovecraft?
I'm not sure. I have a friend who's obsessed with Lovecraft, so he would probably know the answer. I do think it's based on a short story of his, but I do feel like Lovecraft usually tends to be not this straightforward, you know? Like, I feel like he usually deals with more bigger cosmic concepts and stuff, so I don't know how, accurate or whatever it would be to that.
It was my fancy steelbook version.
Ooh, nice.
Pretty.
I have the steelbook for Bride, but
yeah, I've never actually seen the sequels. I think we'll probably do the 2 sequels in the near future, because I've never seen either of them. It'd be an interesting.
They're all on Blu-ray now.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, so because I always got the impression it's kind of like how all the Tom Clancy games that come out, like they have nothing to do with Tom Clancy. They just have the right to use his name.
Fair, yeah.
Because I mean,
yeah, and I don't know. I feel like Lovecraft is a, well, I guess it's different between calling something Lovecraft and actually saying H.P. Lovecraft's blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, I feel like his stuff gets very, watered down, and it tends to just be like, there's some tentacles in it, so yeah, it's Lovecraft,
Yeah, because I definitely think of this as more of like an 80s like horror comedy version of Frankenstein than I do like H.P. Lovecraft. That's just kind of how it feels. But so you have West, who is the mad scientist, the medical student. And actually, I love that this movie takes place at a medical school. Like, and it's like, it's a unique setting. Like, I feel like I don't see it often enough. Obviously, if you watch Scrubs, you've seen a lot of medical school stuff, but I didn't like that show, so I didn't see a whole lot of it. It's fine.
Sure.
But no, it's just a really interesting setting, because it's kind of like, okay, we're students, but we have access to cadavers, and we have access to, like, surgical equipment. It's just an interesting mix of things.
Yeah.
Just kind of like how when I was a student, I had access to cameras and tripods and boom mics and shit. So,
Okay.
I'm just saying it's a far cry to, having access to a bone saw. Okay.
Fair.
All right. So Tim, you enjoy this film.
Sounds like you're like.
Why do you enjoy it?
Sorry.
Go on. Ask your stupid question. I feel there's a silly question coming. Go on.
Oh no, I was just saying. It sounds like you're like just trying really hard to like, prove that like you went to school. Like, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, okay, we believe you. You don't have to try to convince us.
No, I just mean because not all courses have like not all courses require access to equipment. Like if you study like English lit, you're looking at books. you don't need like a lab or in my case like a camera kit and stuff to do your work. Like I'm just.
Like the university I went to had a farm that the science kids could go to and interact with sheep and chickens.
Okay. As you do.
That was one of my favorite classes when I took like a Animal Science 101, and then at the end of the year you get to go to the farm and get to hold a chicken and pet a sheep. It's great. Wild college times.
Oh my indeed. So where do we go? So West is this nut job who thinks he can bring back the dead. He can reanimate them. He's broken the 12-minute brain dead barrier, To the point he's so up himself that when he arrives at the new school that the Doctor oh god I forgot his name. Let me just double check. Dr. Hill, who's like the sort of the main doctor or the main teacher rather. I mean, he's both. He's a doctor as well, but still he's their lecturer. He's given them a lecture on on cutting open the brain and stuff, and immediately West at the end of the class gets up and goes, "I can't believe you teach these people this drivel." You're trying to block their minds up before they even try and experiment and see what they believe in themselves. Even before that, the first time he meets them, he's just like, "Oh yeah, your research is outdated. You've basically plagiarized." Which, by the way, so the movie opens with a scene of him in Switzerland with this other scientist that he was studying with.
Oh yeah.
And the scientist dies, and you get this ridiculous great scene with the effects and the eyes popping out and stuff. And they kept calling him Gruber, and I was like, okay, whatever, right? And obviously I'm thinking Hans Gruber from Die Hard. Later on, you find out his first name was Hans. This guy was called Hans Gruber, and they're not even taking it from Die Hard because this is like 3 years before Die Hard came out. So this is the first Hans Gruber in cinema.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I'm just saying.
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah. I think that's worth mentioning. This is important. So the plot of the movie is that he's trying to do this stuff. He gets a roommate with another main character, our protagonist really, Dan, who is a med student, and he's dating the dean's daughter, and they have they're played by Barbara Crampton, of course, who's become something of a horror. I don't want to say icon.
Oh yeah,
she's definitely a recognized
figure. I would
figure.
say she's an icon.
Sure.
Like I think so. Like I think at this point she's been in like so much stuff that it's like maybe she doesn't have as like this is probably her most iconic role.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
But like like maybe she doesn't pop up in like always the best movies, but she's in like a ton of horror movies. Like it's definitely one of those very recognizable horror faces.
Oh sure, yeah.
And she's great in this too.
Although
actually, if I have maybe like when I was watching it yesterday, I think maybe my one complaint about the movie is that I wish maybe they would have given her a little more to do because she's just the screaming girlfriend throughout the whole movie. Like it would have been nice maybe if at some point she had like a little agency or something. But I mean, obviously, like it's the 80s and kind of take it for what it is. But that's maybe the one small complaint I have.
It's good to acknowledge it, even if it's if it feels almost pointless to criticize it too much for it now. But it's good to acknowledge it and say, okay, this is how it was, and let's be aware of that moving forward. But so Wes moves in with him, and then eventually kind of ropes him into his experiments, and it quickly goes very badly. Anything he reanimates gets very angry very quick, starting with a cat and then leading to other specimens, more human specimens, of course. And then the last act of this movie gets downright absurd with the dark humor and the ridiculous effects and the crudity of it. So that is essentially what Re-Animator is in a nutshell. It's a great performance, of course, for West by Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs. Yeah, he's like.
There you go. Oh.
Sorry. Oh no, he just brings so much like a gravitas to the character. Like it's definitely very over the top, but you feel like for that character that overly smart, opinionated, obsessed, not afraid to speak his mind, that kind of person, like that is how they would act. And yeah, he just does such a good job, and he makes him such a he's like kind of like a little weasel, but you can't really help but love him.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe this will be more of a discussion like after spoilers and everything, but like one thing I do kind of want to talk about is like should he be considered like a good guy, or is he like the bad guy, the villain of the movie?
Oh,
like,
I definitely.
It's an interesting character.
I definitely don't think he's a good guy. I think he's not the most villainous, but he is very willing to kill things. I mean, we never get a confirmation if he actually killed the cat or if he just found it dead. But I am basically 99.9% sure he killed the cat. I can't root for West at all. But he's definitely not as sleazy as what the real villain turns out to be, I guess. he's kind of a weird character in that sense because I feel like the start of the movie is building him up as if he's going to be the villain, and then he's ultimately kind of like this weird neutral middle ground that you know, like he seems villainous in places, but there's another villain, the big bad villain for the last act that, again, full spoilers for that later, but he ends up being this weird middle ground of a character, but not in a way that makes it feel bland, where it feels like they didn't pick either side. It's just that he's this weird anomaly of a character.
But yeah, I just think the performance is so good, and he's such a an interesting character that even though he is, I guess, somewhat of an antagonist, I feel like you do kind of end up rooting for him a little bit. Or at least in the sense of like, oh, I want to see more of him.
He's very unhealthily obsessed with his work. That's for sure. That's definitely for sure. So obviously we can't not like sticking to spoiler free stuff just now. We can't not mention the effects and the practical effects where we've got like body parts falling off. We've got heads decapitated and all that kind of stuff. I think what I like about it is not only is it really like sort of bloody and stuff and really, but it's all there's an element of playfulness to the whole thing. Like it always feels kind of playful and fun and just a little bit goofy, and just rolling with the insanity of it all. And I think that I would extend that to the music. I think the music's really playful. Like it starts off almost sounding like Friday the 13th score with the violins and the strings like da da da, and then it goes into this more playful melody, and it's like no, we're having fun.
Like it almost reminds me of speaking about the music, like it almost sounds like a little Hitchcockian at first.
It does, yeah.
But then it kind of goes into something that like you might see this more in a like Gremlins or Honey, I Shrunk the Kids kind of like opening or something like.
Because I compared it to Friday the 13th score, and you said Hitchcock. Because Friday the 13th score was intentionally ripping off Hitchcock scores. So we were meaning the same thing, but like it starts off like a serious horror like thriller like music, and then it goes into this more upbeat kind of playful theme, and that's kind of the tone of the movie. Really, it keeps it playful, and I think whenever I watch it and I have a blast, I'm like I always forget like this is just a really fun movie with lots of really wacky scenes where they said, "Oh, can we do this? Can we get away with this? Can we?" Because the plot is ultimately quite simple, and I forget how like little there is of it really once it gets going. Like
and it's like super tight. Like it's and obviously it is a short movie, but like you definitely I don't think there's any boring moments. Like it picks up right away. Like you very quickly are like interested and invested in the characters, and it's just it's so tightly everything just fits together like so well. It's just such a like a fun, easy watch, and it feels very like there's not that many locations. It's kind of like just like maybe like 2 or 3 like locations that kind of just go back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's obviously it's a low budget movie because it's just it's an Empire Pictures film after all, but I feel like whatever money they had, they put it into the effects, and maybe to an extent getting it's not so much that I think the cast themselves were expensive because I assume they're all pretty much unknowns at the time for the most part, but I think they spent time casting it properly, so they're all pretty strong in their performances.
No, I could be wrong, but I do think I've listened to some podcasts. I think over the last year I've been listening to some horror ones, and I forget if it was Stuart Gordon or Jeffrey Combs they were interviewing, but I want to say that like Stuart Gordon was he used to like write like community plays, and that was kind of the thing he was more known for, and he had like a little kind of theater troupe that I think Jeffrey Combs was in, and I think that's kind of how they came together, and maybe other people in it might be from the troupe as well. I don't quote me on that, but I do think there's something along the lines.
What I was getting at is that in terms of locations, it does feel really cheap because there's this like one morgue in the hallway to the morgue that I feel like we keep coming back to, and it makes sense given the context. We keep seeing the security guard who sits out there. And like he's kind of friendly with people, and he never really factors into the plot much. Like ultimately at the end, he just kind of witnesses some stuff. He's kind of like the regular guy, just to be like, "Whoa, what is this crazy shit happening?" And And then obviously there's the house where they live, and like maybe the dean's office and a few other places. But I mean, there's a very limited. So they save money on locations for sure, but clearly all of the money went into the effects. It went into the absurd effects and making that work. That's not to say that they all work out completely. The dead cat at one point is really shitty looking. It doesn't even look remotely real. But you know, you let it away with it. So if it's been fun, and it is pretty much fun, and I think Jeffrey Combs' energy as an eccentric scientist, I think the Dr. Hill, I think his performance is pretty good. He gets really creepy as the movie goes on, in a slimy kind of sleazy way, and that kind of works.
I'd say even like even kind of early on, like the scene where he's like having dinner with the dean is like ugh.
Yeah, it's just the glances, it's the way he's making these little comments. He seems too concerned with what she's doing. There's just this obsession kind of seeded early on that he's into Barbara Crampton's character. But I mean, I think that's pretty much all we can say in spoiler free. So without further ado, full spoilers for Re-Animator. So, the movie's real villain's Dr. Hill, who. So this is why I don't think Jeffrey Combs, West, I don't think you can consider him a good character, because he is far too willing to kill people. He's also far too willing to like cover his tracks by like blaming it on other people and stuff. Because basically, so they reanimate the cat, and the cat goes feral, and Dan goes to the dean, and the dean freaks out when he tells him, and like says, "Oh, your loan's going away. We're going to expel him." And he's so like broken by this that he just agrees to help West sneak into the morgue so they can get like a cadaver to reanimate, and they do. And we get this over the top scene with this cadaver waking up and like causing chaos, and the dean comes in to like confront them, like, "How dare you come in here when you're not supposed to be here?" And he gets his fingers bit off, he gets his head bashed, he gets so much. There's a lot of splatting against the wall that I like a lot actually in this.
Yeah, and then like one of the like first things he does is they he basically like breaks open the like door, which like falls on him, and then he's just like banging on the door. It's just something about that just seems like so kind of like brutal to me. I
feel like the dean just goes this over the top, really long death where he is just, like I say, fingers bitten off, bashed with the door, all this stuff thrown across the room. It's this comical amount of violence towards him, and then to the point where I'm like, how does Meg ever forgive Dan for being a part of this? Like how?
Oh no, you can't. Like,
bullshit. I call him bullshit now.
It's one of those. It's one of those funny things though, where like it almost like starts off like kind of horrific, but then it does go on so long that at one point it does kind of like turn like comedic, where you're like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of funny.
Yeah, and then they decide, oh, we'll reanimate him. Or, well, I mean, Dan doesn't want to. He thinks, oh, this is crazy. We can never reanimate anyone again. Clearly, it's not a good idea. And Jeffrey Combs is like, no, let's do it. And he reanimates him. And now he's like a mental patient.
Be different if he's like fresh, like
And so, but now he's okay. He's back up. He's reanimated, but he's like a crazy person just raving in the corner. And like Meg comes in, doesn't understand what she's seeing. Everyone's freaking out. And it's after this where we finally kind of, which by the way, I thought it was weird that Dr. Hill, who becomes the villain here, of course, because he goes to West and like, I'm going to take your formula and claim it's my own, and if you never want to get into trouble for what you've done, you'll give it to me, and give me everything. And obviously West here decapitates him with a shovel and then reanimates just the head, but unfortunately for him, the West Hill's body gets back up and the head can still control it. So we get this body walking around without a head, which is really fun. Again, it's really goofy. It's kind of the spirit of the film, this jovial spirit. But I want to mention his office before he goes and does this. He's talking to Meg, and this is where it gets really creepy because he actually is like, I know you're alone now, so if you ever want to talk, and he just kind of touches her a little bit, and it's just very creepy. Can I just ask, why does a surgeon have like a padded room with a one-way mirror like connecting to his office? Because it's not like this is just a different room in the hospital and they happen to be here. This is definitely his office. They confirm that this is his office later on.
That's a good question. I don't know. I didn't think about that. It's not like it's an insane asylum. Like, it just seems like that would be something you would have at like a Arkham Asylum or something.
Yeah, it's straight. Yeah, I feel like Doctor Arkham up in his office, he would have like a private padded room for observation purposes. But
Yeah.
this just felt really weird. Like, did you just have this installed like today? But he does a lobotomy on him, and that's how he figures out about the reanimating, medicine and tech. Obviously, we should mention this. This is beautiful glowing green serum that he has. That West has on him. Very, very pretty. I remember one of the special edition DVDs from like 10 years ago came with a syringe filled with green goop.
Ooh, I like that.
They glowed in the dark, I think.
Yeah, I think originally it took me forever to watch this movie because I think in high school I'd bought like a used copy, and you'd probably like recognize that because I feel like you'd see it all the time. It was like this big like 3-disc like green DVD case.
Oh sure, yeah.
I want to say Anchor Bay probably put that out. But like one of the discs was scratched, and like I couldn't watch it, and then I tried to return it, but they were like, "Well, we can't take this back. It's scratched." And I'm like, "I know, I bought it. It's scratched. I can't." And it actually took me quite a while to see it. I think I eventually saw it sometime in college, but
yeah. Remember when Anchor Bay was the company for horror movies, like on DVD? They were the ones you were excited about.
Yeah, it kind of bums me out that they're not around anymore because I liked them. I thought they were cool.
Yeah,
they put out some good additions.
And now,
I wonder. I don't even.
Now it's Arrow and Scream Factory doing all this stuff.
Yeah, and there's a few other small ones are popping up, like what do you call it? Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah, that's one.
Severin, I think, is becoming a little bit of a name.
Blue Underground was always kind of a smaller one, even back in the Anchor Bay days. It's still kind of around. Yeah, you get these little labels.
Actually, one thing that I think has been really interesting is, again, I like listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm at work, and I've been listening to this one called Shockwaves, which is a horror podcast from Blumhouse, and it's really good. They get a lot of interesting interviews, like from people you normally wouldn't hear from, and so like they talk to a lot of people that work at these companies. So like I think for like horror nerds and stuff, it's interesting to hear like how the people from Scream Factory actually, how they license titles, and why sometimes they can't get this movie, or why it takes so long to get this movie out and stuff. So it's some interesting stuff behind that.
Yeah, I feel like as time goes on, like these boutique labels get more and more movies easier because basically the big studios are giving up on physical media to the extent they used to want to do it. So now like I think Scream Factory, like what did they put? They put out Carrie, I think, last year or something like that, like relatively recently. And I feel like 5 years ago, even never mind 10 years ago, like MGM would never have let them have Carrie because they'd want to do their own version of Carrie and make their own money directly. But I feel like now they're not as interested in putting out discs for old movies. So like, yeah, just take Carrie. We can make some money off the licensing, and you can put out your disc, and that's how it is.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're going.
That sounds about right.
We're going streaming now. We're doing all these different things. So it's interesting though. I believe Arrow has like a channel on Amazon Prime, so you can get like a lot of Arrow movies that way if you want to.
Oh, cool.
Go that route. But hey, so yeah, what are we talking about? Oh yeah, so we have Hill with a head missing, and that's just kind of the end game of the movie because he gets basically what he's done. Apparently, it turns out that he can control. He's made like a serum for the brain where he can control. He can actually take over their will. And he says that it works even better with reanimated corpses. So it turns out he actually makes Thingy's dad, the dean, go and kidnap her and bring her in, and he straps her to a table, strips off her clothes. And we have one of the most creepiest, like, silly scenes ever, where he's in, like, his head's in this tray, and he's just kind of, he can barely speak. He's kind of struggling, but he's sort of looking over, and he's sort of licking his lips, and it's kind of disgusting. And then eventually, of course, the headless body of him picks up his own head, and shoves it into her crotch. And the whole thing is just like bizarre and ridiculous and over the top and surreal. It's something else. And I mean everything with his headless body, because I love that his headless body sneaks into the morgue with because there's a model head on his desk in his office, and he sneaks into the morgue with that in his head, or on his neck, I suppose, to be more accurate.
It's funny. Even like talks to the security guard.
Yeah.
Which is funny. And then when he when he talks, it's like muffled because it's in the bag.
Yeah, his head's in the bag.
Funny.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So of course Dan shows up. So does West, and they try and save her. Of course, you feel like West is just there to like get his materials back, get his concoction back and stuff. So yeah, we get like a big it's like, oh, I've got a plan here, and like all of the cadavers wake up. He's controlling all of them. So we get a big sort of fight scene.
It's like a great scene when they like I forget exactly what he says, but like he says something that makes them like all rise, and it's just like this cool shot where it's kind of like, oh man, they're screwed.
This is probably what you're saying earlier on, where there's a lot of nudity here because there are all these cadavers who are just going around naked. A lot of nudity. So yeah, we get and more fighting to the point where like somehow it didn't work when he was kidnapping her, but Barbara Crampton gets through to her dad. She's like, "Hey, Dad, it's me, please," and he kind of like, because obviously he cares about his daughter, it's enough to break the control, and he goes after the after Hill, and he squeezes his head. He actually squishes his head in until it goes plop. And yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's chaos. And Jeffrey Combs is grabbed by all the dead people, and he's like pulled into the smoke that's filling up the room. And
another great shot. And a lot of really cool like atmospheric, interesting shots.
There's a lot of good little beats here. Again with the effects, like everything with the head and the tray is so good, and him walking about with his head and his hands, and it's good. It's just good stuff. Unfortunately, though, Meg, Barbara Crampton's character, does get killed. She is grabbed by a cadaver at the elevator, and we have to actually hack off his arm. Dan hacks off his arm, which is still twitching, might I add, just to add a bit more humor to the situation. And he takes her up to the other floor where the hospital rooms are, and this all links back into the start of the movie, because when we first met Dan, he was trying to resuscitate like a woman, and he couldn't. And he gets chastised by the teacher because he doesn't. He should know that it's over and he should give up, but he keeps doing CPR as best he can. So we get the same scene here where he's doing it with her, and it's the love of his life, and he's trying his best. He's trying his best to do it, but it doesn't work. Everyone leaves the room. It's all sad, and then he's got West's bag, and he pulls out the green syringe, and it just fades to black as he's putting it in, and you hear her scream. You're like, how does he think this is a good idea? You know, every single person who comes back with this stuff is like a raving zombie. Like, madness.
Well, I mean, it's definitely never a good idea, but yeah, it's that kind of mental state where you do anything and then you always find some way to justify it. Usually it's like, oh no, yeah, if we do, the closer we do it right away or something, that it'll help. But I really love just the way they show it at the end, though, because like he has the syringe of green, and then it fades to black, but you still see the green stuff, and then you kind of see it start to get depleted, like it's being injected, which just is a really cool visual. Yeah,
you just hear her screaming, and that's when the credits start playing. And that's it's actually a really short, simple movie when you actually break it down. But it's full of all these inventive little ideas and really over the top effects. You can tell that they really sat down and thought about the effects and what they want in those set pieces with the head, with the cadaver. One of my favorite bits actually is when towards the end, when the security guard comes back and sees all the chaos and he runs off to get the cops, the head gets thrown out of the room and it hits the wall behind him. It's just a splat, and there's just like blood and mush just falling down the wall. That's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff. But no, it's really fun, and like despite the what might be like a really dark subject matter, it's actually really jovial, and I think that's kind of the charm of it, is that it keeps it kind of just in the right tone that you can't help but just smile at it. You smile at the macabre of the humor.
Yeah, and like even the like the big scene that like a lot of people recognize from the movie of the the head giving head, as it were. Like even that, like it's like obviously it's not something like you're smiling at, but it does feel like it is a little, because of how crazy and over the top it is, and because it's like this weird zombie that's holding his own head, it's like less upsetting than you would get just like a normal rape scene or something in a movie would be. Like,
I think what I forgot what I was going to say, to be honest. if I'm entirely honest, I had a thought and then it went away. But yeah, Reanimator,
What?
I think it's got a pretty strong cast. This is the sort of thing where if it had a weaker cast, if it didn't have the effects that it had, didn't have a director that understood the tone that it was going for, it would probably fail quite miserably. You can see the terrible version of this, like made by other people, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's one of those things where, yeah, like Jeffrey Combs just does such a great job that it's like it seems virtually impossible to imagine anyone else playing that character. Like,
Oh
it's
yeah,
yeah, like I can't even imagine like anyone doing it as good as him.
yeah. As we said, it's really unbelievable that because she does seem to forgive Dan for his involvement, right? Whether they're almost about to kiss before she gets kidnapped by the zombie version of her father. And as much as I'm calling them zombies, I would never really classify this as a zombie movie.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm not really sure what you would
Mad scientist.
necessarily say. Sure, okay, yeah,
Mad
that's
scientist
fair.
movie. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Even though they're
yeah, because
technically zombies.
they're not. Yeah, I feel like zombies. You have to have the thing is they have to want to eat you. I feel like uh, they have to want to eat you, and they have to change you when they bite you. And yeah, that's not what this is. It's just reanimated corpses, but they're just feral and violent.
Yeah.
And naked.
And usually naked. Yes, this is true. It's almost a shame we didn't get more animals, though. I mean, would you not want to see a reanimated goat going nuts and crazy and?
Oh my god, that'd be amazing.
Yeah,
you gotta save something for the sequel, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've not seen the sequels. Maybe there's goats in that. We'll find out. But no, it's good.
I'm not sure. I feel like I've seen Bride at some point, but I really don't remember anything about it. I know for sure that I've seen Beyond because I remember very specifically, like me and my friend watched that one time. But yeah, I don't remember Bride too much.
I mean,
so
Jeffrey Combs, I'm sure, is in the sequels, which is because I mean, you don't see him die here, but it is very kind of. It definitely implies he's a goner, right? So obviously the sequel kind of rewrites that a little bit just to have him back, which I can't blame them for really, but. It doesn't need a sequel. Like, this is a perfectly fine standalone movie, but I'm curious to see what the sequels are like. So we'll definitely get to them in the near future.
Yeah, and I think probably my favorite line, and probably one of the more memorable lines, is when he's confronting the zombified or reanimated Dr. Hill, and he's telling him he's going to take credit for his discovery. And he's like, "Who's going to believe you? You're a talking head."
That's a very good point.
And it's just like his like delivery though is so like earnest. Like, there's nothing about him that ever falters and is overwhelmed by the experience. Like, he's more concerned about this guy trying to take credit for his work than the fact that it's a reanimated corpse.
Actually, before Meg goes down to see what's going on, because she's been told to wait upstairs, not during the final scene, during the scene with her dad is being attacked. She's randomly sitting next to this patient in the hospital area, and it's this guy who's like missing a chin. He's got bandages on, but he's like, you can tell that he's missing like the bottom half of his face. But he's just staring at her the whole time. Like, he's just looking at her the whole time. I noticed it this time when I was watching it. He's got his eyes on her. I don't know if that's more creepy affection or if it's just meant to be like a quirky little like moment, like just something there in the background to notice. I don't know.
Like, how does the dean not get just as creeped out by like Dr. Hill? Because the thing is like Dr. Hill's like, he seems like pretty old. Like, I don't know how old he's supposed to be, but he seems like at least in his 40s.
I'd say he's at least 50, but yeah.
Yeah. And then like just when they're having that dinner scene and Dr. Hill's like, I want to give a toast, and he's just talking about like, to the ever, beautiful, graceful daughter, and it's like how would you not like kick that guy out of your house after that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they say that the dean's very religious and like old-fashioned, and like they have to hide the fact that they're a couple because, like, as far as he's concerned, she should not be having any sex before marriage. So I guess it maybe goes with those. He just can't even consider that that's what he means. That no, he's just being very pleasant about my daughter. That's maybe what his mind's thinking.
True. Yeah.
That's all I got for you anyway. But yeah, I guess we should rate the movie, Tim.
Yeah. It's a little tough because I'm trying to decide between like a 9 and a 9.5, to be honest. Because I really like this movie, and I don't think there's too much faults to be had with it. And I think I'm gonna give it a 9. Yeah, I mean, I really, really don't have any complaints though. Like it's that small one mentioned before. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is such a fun, good movie. The gore just looks amazing, and all the performances are great, and it's such like a nice, brisk, like one and done movie that it's really hard to say too many bad things about it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go as high as that. I'm gonna give it a solid 8. I like it a lot. I think it's a great
Okay.
movie. I think it's a great little schlock fest for what it is. Good
Mhm.
performances, good effects, all the stuff. Um, I wouldn't go super higher than that though. Just because I don't think it like I don't know if it ever really has
Missing.
anything more to it than just the fun factor, if that makes sense. There's never like
Okay. Yeah.
like there's no real like character arc really being told beyond like anything.
Sure, that's fair. Yeah, like there's no
Yeah,
like deeper meaning. There's
yeah,
no like hidden truths you're gonna find out about yourself, or it's like a good popcorn flick. You
yeah.
kind of watch it, you're done. It's not sticking in your mind all week.
And
So I get
and
that.
it's great as that. Don't get me wrong. Like it's absolutely that's why it's
Yeah.
fascinating. Like I have a blast whenever I watch it. So
Mhm.
there you go. That is Re-Animator, and of course continue to come back for more episodes during October because it's the Octoberthon. And you can of course support us and make sure we can keep coming back for more Octobers over at patreon.com/MaileFuzzTV, where you can get voting rights once per month. You can add movies to the crypt, which is our to-do list of movies that our patrons can add to. Everyone can look at the list. The list is in the description. You can get a link to that down there. But the patrons get to add the movies to it. But that is us. So thank you very much for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. I'm at Wibble89. Tim's at Tim Vergulish. You can find us on Twitters there. But that's us. So thank you very much once again. We'll see you next time. Keep watching scary movies, guys. Happy October and goodbye.